Everyone's got their little translator things in their ears, hopefully. I'm waving at my little translator guys up the back. They're amazing. Thank you to the people in the box at the back. All right. And also, thank you very much for the opportunity to come along today and share part of our team's journey from shipping a boxed product every 2 years to shipping a cloud-hosted service like Azure DevOps multiple times a day. My name's Anthony Borton. I'm a DevOps architect. What a wonderful title that is. And I work with Microsoft's DevOps customer advisory team. Prior to joining Microsoft, I was a Microsoft MVP for 11 years. And, I love community. I present at communities as I travel the world every chance I get. And I also set up my own meetup group back home in Australia back in 2008. And it's still running today. The name changed. It was a TFS, Team Foundation Server, user group. Then it moved, as Microsoft renamed the product, to VSTS. And then we're Azure DevOps. But community is just wonderful, and again, it's just a pleasure to be here. My team at Microsoft was created to help our largest customers accelerate their DevOps transformation. That's the entire team, and 2 of them are managers, so there's not a lot of us to cover the world. I look after this section here, so I do a lot of traveling. I think I've flown in the last 9 years 2.49 million kilometres. That's a lot of flying. So, what I do is I grab or work with one team from a customer. I spend 2 weeks looking at their DevOps challenges, and in a very hands-on way, I work to mentor and coach them to solve as many problems as we can in just 2 short weeks. I've just been working with a very large organisation in Taiwan, which was why I was in this area and had the chance to come up to visit you in Seoul. All right, so just a bit of a background. If you look at the Fortune 500 companies from the year 2000, half of those companies are no longer in the Fortune 500. They've been replaced by organisations that can deliver value faster, more frequently, and cheaper. That's to say that companies come along and they can out-innovate their competitors, the incumbents in the environment. If you look there, you'll see ride-sharing, Twitter. Twitter has changed the way the world consumes information and media. When I travel now, I typically open up Netflix, I choose what I want to watch on the flights and download it. I take a ride share out to the airport. And this is not what I would have done 10 years ago. The current Fortune 500 companies are facing this same problem today, insofar as half of them will not be in the Fortune 500 by the year 2026. Innovation is central to this. Developers are at the heart of a company's innovation. Good news for us, right? Excellent. We want to look at ways to increase our productivity. But also, we're learning that specialisation isn't winning the day as often as it was in previous years. We need to be able to collaborate. We need to be able to swarm around a business problem and solve it. And we can solve it using open source or inner source. Within our organisations now, we want collaboration and sharing, the bests of the open source world inside companies as well. That's what success is really about for many companies today. Innovation needs to reach our customers quickly, faster than ever before. We need to accelerate that delivery, get things out nice and fast. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we optimize reliability. In an ever increasingly impatient society, we expect those sites and those services to be there when we want them. Okay? There's a problem. So if that side of the room are my developers, I incentivize that group on how quickly you can make changes. Get this feature done. Go, go, go. And if this side of the room are my operations people, I incentivize you to keep everything reliable. Can you see the paradox we're setting up here? If this side of the room is rewarded when the site is reliable, if it's running today, what's the best thing you can do? Don't touch it. But these guys, they want to touch it. They want to change everything. So that's the software delivery paradox that I assume you're all familiar with. Change, no change, there's a problem. Within Microsoft, this is the definition of DevOps that we choose to use. It's not the one definition. Heck, it's probably not even the best. But for us, this is what we choose. We choose that DevOps is the union of people, process, and products to enable continuous delivery of value to your end users. That's what DevOps is for us. I would suggest that if I asked each of you for a definition of DevOps, I would probably get a different definition from every one of you. This is information from last year's State of DevOps report. Who's familiar with the State of DevOps report? No one seen that? Okay. So it's produced by the DevOps Research Association, DORA. And what they do is they produce an annual report, a State of the Union on DevOps. 2018 was an important year. They changed from comparing organisations that don't do DevOps and organisations that do. They changed and said, we will talk to low-performing DevOps companies and high-performing DevOps companies, and if you don't do DevOps, we don't want to talk to you anymore. You won't remain relevant. That's pretty harsh. What we learnt is amazing. High-performing DevOps organisations spend significantly more time delivering new value, features and value to customers. And they spend a lot less time over here with customer support work and just keeping the lights on. That surprised me. What that tells us is that both high-performing and low-performing DevOps organisations will spend about 20% of their time on unplanned work and rework. That's turning out to be a constant. Change is inevitable. Customer needs change, laws change, stuff changes. So we need to set up our teams to be nimble, to be able to change quickly, switch context. We need great tools and a great culture in our teams to facilitate that. The 2019 report came out about 4 weeks ago, and I haven't had a chance to update this yet. What we have seen is that the percentage of high-performing DevOps organisations in a year have gone from 7% to 20%. That's fantastic news. And it means organisations can and are changing and adopting DevOps practices, and we need them to do that. I work in the Azure DevOps product group. That's my team, and I'm I'm not here to sell you Azure DevOps. But I work with this team and I want to share part of our DevOps journey with you. This is what Azure DevOps is. We've got our boards there to help you manage work, our repositories for centralized or distributed version control, our pipelines for CI/CD, test plans over here, and Azure Artifacts. There's a link. You can go and look at it if you're interested. That's my sales pitch. So, I'm going to test this little system out. And I really want to walk around, but it's going to make their job really hard if I walk away from the microphone. So, if I wanted to paint a picture, and the picture was the Titanic, and it was steaming towards the iceberg, and I wanted to put the Microsoft logo on the side, and marketing said no. And I thought, okay, that's probably not the corporate image we want. But Microsoft was born in 1975. It's older than probably most of the people in the room. And it predated the internet. A lot of our competitors were born in the internet age. For them, CI/CD, that was what they grew up with. But for us, it was very different. We ship a product every 2 years, or we did back in the day. And if we continued to do that, we would not remain relevant. Others would innovate much faster. We would lose business and not be in this business anymore. Who's got a Windows phone? So, we had to change or become irrelevant. So we do a few builds each day. I want you to guess for me, how many builds do we do every day at Microsoft? I'll make it easier. What about releases? How many times do we deploy? Who wants to guess? Give me a number. I'll give you a hint. It's more than one. No takers? All right. We do about 82,000 deployments a day across Microsoft. Not bad. We do 4.6 million builds every month. We are, in fact, our own biggest customer for pipelines. My team gets an Azure bill. Who gets Azure bills in the room? Anyone? Our bill for builds alone is in excess of probably $50 million. That's a pretty steep Azure bill. But that's okay. We use our own tools. There's a program of work within Microsoft called OneES, One Engineering System. How many version control systems do you know? Git. You could cheat and go GitHub and GitLab and all those things. SVN, Mercurial. Hey, SourceSafe. No SourceSafe? Okay. Within Microsoft, at one stage, we had 40 different source control systems. 40. But there aren't 40 that we could name. So what did we do? We did what a lot of developers do. Hey, we can do it better. We'll just make our own. And we did. The most commonly used source control system within Microsoft was called Source Depot. You've probably never heard of it because it was ours. We built it, we maintained it, we updated it, we spent money on it. And we did that with lots of other ones. And that's just one example. OneES, the One Engineering System, is our fine, our penalty for letting that happen. We want one engineering system and we want it to be the best engineering system on the planet. That's our goal. We want our teams to be able to build Windows and Azure and Office and all of our products using the best tools that we can possibly make. OneES is based on Azure DevOps. So as we mature that for ourselves, we then invest that and make that available for our customers. So this is based on Azure DevOps. So we use it, we break it sometimes, but we learn and make the product better. Some other facts there that I'm quite proud of. We've got 25,000 employees contributing to open source communities today. Open source is a huge thing in Microsoft. We are, I believe, the single largest corporate contributor to open source in the world today. Whereas before, it was like Microsoft versus the open source world. It hasn't been that way for a little while now.
But Holland comes in for a pit stop, trying to refuel and change fire. Littlemore himself changes the fire. Only 4 crew members, including the driver, are allowed to work on the car. It's a scarce time. Holland stays in his seat, anxious to get away. Let's watch. Changed to black. A crewman polishes the windshield as Collins moves away just 57 seconds after he stops.
It was a little bit different, wasn't it? I suspect a few of you have probably seen those videos before, but what I like about them is, the parallels to DevOps. If you look at the first example, they spent a lot of time putting fuel in the car. In the second example, how long did they take? They didn't. They didn't put any fuel in the car the second time. In the first example, they replaced 2 tyres. In the second example, they replaced 4. In the second example, I was going to say the lift, the jack to lift the car up. It's not really a jack as much as a lever. Did you notice there were 2? One lifted the car, and right behind them was another one that wasn't used. Why would you have 2? Because at some point in the past, the jack has failed, and that's cost precious time. So we look at the problem, we figure out a solution. We need redundancy. So all of a sudden now, there's 2 jacks. We don't put fuel in the car the second time because we have rich telemetry that tells us we don't need fuel. Sometimes people look at the example and think DevOps is just about adding more people. Because in the first example, the law, the rules governing racing said that you could only have a certain number of people. So just throwing people at a problem isn't an answer, although clearly there are a few more people there. The team I work with, Azure DevOps, there's 850 people spread across 45 feature teams in 4 primary locations. I'm going to talk about their journey. We work in 3-week sprints, and that's just the Goldilocks Principle. You know Goldilocks and the 3 bears? Surely. So, we tried 2 weeks, and it just felt too small, too many ceremonies and meetings. We tried 4 weeks, and we tended to plan about 2.5 weeks and then just wing the rest. We tried 3 weeks, and it felt just right. So I think of it that we have one product, but we deploy to two places. On premises, which is Azure DevOps Server, and up in the cloud, which is Azure DevOps, or Azure DevOps Services, or whatever we call it these days. We like to change the name, don't we? We started this journey, Sprint 1, back in August 2010. Multiply that by 3-week increments and you know exactly where we are today. So, in fact, if we wanted to know what sprint our team is in, what we can do is we can just open a browser and say HTTPS, what sprint is it? And that tells me right now that for our Azure DevOps team, we're currently in sprint 159, week 3. All 45 of those feature teams use the exact same sprints. We learnt we needed to, because those teams talk to each other a lot. Could you imagine that if every team had different sprints? Oh, that'll be ready in sprint 110. Is that your 110 or my 110? It'd be impossible. So, what did it look like before? We were typically a waterfall organisation. We had 2-year delivery cycles, and we were striving for peak technical debt. That's a bad thing, right? And what we would do is we would bring our customers in and we'd do our planning. And we were good at planning. We found out what the customers wanted and we documented it. We'd go away and we'd code it. And what do you think we did just here when the code was complete? We had a party. It was literally called the Code Complete Party. And we celebrated because our code was perfect, because we hadn't given it to the testers yet. Most of the team would move on to the next pieces of work. We'd keep a few team members to test and stabilise. We'd send out our early betas, our beta versions, and we'd send out our release candidates. And we would get feedback from our customers. And our customers would say, you did this really good, but this, you didn't quite get it right. You need to change that. And we'd say, okay. Problem was, most of the team have moved on. They're on other work now. So what we'd do is say, thank you for the feedback. We'd put that into the backlog. Well, it wasn't really a backlog. And we'd say, we'll get back to you in the next release, which is 2 to 2.5 years away. Telling your valuable customers, great, you can have it in 2 years or more. That wasn't such a great story, was it? But how did it work? Well, at the time, it really did work. That's what was considered normal. Okay? I mentioned Windows Phone before. Yep. Obviously, that's where we failed. But we produced a great product, and it's probably hard for most of you to believe. We actually led in terms of smartphones for a while there. And then another organisation arrived and they innovated. And we thought, oh, okay, what do we do in the face of competition? We did what we always did. We went away and we planned our response. And we spent 2 years building it. And then we brought it to market. And it was a good product. And there was innovation in it. But in the 2 years that had elapsed, the world had changed. The app stores were gaining popularity. All these things were happening. And we're sort of, oh. And we never caught up. We had good product. And the Windows Mobile team, they really brought out innovation. There were some great things there, but it wasn't enough to win the game. We're no longer in that market. Firms today experience a much higher velocity of change than ever before. Business opportunities appear and dissolve in months or weeks instead of years. If we have the next Facebook, Uber, whatever, you can't sit on the idea and mature it for a couple of years. If you do, someone else will bring it to market first. So what changed? I want to talk about these lessons. We needed to become customer obsessed. We had to listen to our customers. And that wasn't just lip service. It wasn't just listening. It was really listening. We had to be active. We listened on user voice. And if anyone's used user voice, it's great for voting things up, but you couldn't vote down. So we may have had 50 people saying, this is important, but we didn't have any visibility of the 1,000 people saying, don't do that. So we stopped using user voice and we used developer community to give us better feedback. We're active on Stack Overflow, where many of our customers are. Within the product, we allow people to give us feedback. And for our top customers, we have product group champs for them, champions, so that our top customers can talk directly to people in our product group. We collect data broadly, 7, 10, probably 11 terabytes of data every day across Azure. It's an extraordinary amount of data. Some of the things that we measure are a little unusual. For organisations moving from waterfall, they might start looking at original estimates. So they expect a developer to submit an estimate. And then we want to get the actual. And then we want to look at the differences. And does management use that for good or for evil? It's not always for good, is it? Turns out that's not as important as a lot of organisations think. Completed hours, lines of code and burn downs, it's all there, but our leadership does not focus on that. We focus on these things over here, and there's strong messaging there to tell us what's important. Actually, let's do an ad hoc demonstration of a real world system. What could go wrong, right? So if I go over here, jump down to here, go into the engineering scorecard, let's open that. Okay, so this is live, unscripted, within Eng, so our engineering, where we build Azure DevOps. You're about to see our scorecard, showing the metrics that our teams have, for good or for bad. We tend to optimize customer-facing pages more than internal ones. Come on. That's really slow today. It's warning me that you shouldn't do unscripted demos. Come on. Maybe it is really, really bad and I shouldn't be showing it. In a moment, you're going to see our engineering scorecard. You will see that today there are just 8 metrics in our engineering scorecard. 8 doesn't seem like a lot, does it? If we look at what those metrics are, and there's a couple there that aren't good, let's just move up and... Oh, that's the worst. We'll go back to the top. So if we look at what these metrics are, it tells you clearly what our leadership says is important. The first one, stale LSI repair items. LSI is live site incident. If we have an incident, an outage, you cannot close that unless you've documented the repair items. What engineering must be put in place to make sure that problem never impacts us again? There's nothing like something failing and you've got an outage, and then the same thing happens a month later and you get another outage. You're not learning anything. So we get 2 sprints to put in place any required engineering to make sure that that root cause does not happen again. That's leadership telling us reliability is important. Stale DTSs. That's days to solve. Think of it as, it's not really support tickets, but you can think of it that way a little bit. Be responsive. active P0 bugs and stale P1 bugs. Fix bad bugs quickly. Kind of goes without saying, you would have thought. We then go down to bugs per engineer. Bugs per engineer, we've set a bug cap. It's 5. If you've got 10 engineers on your team, multiply that by 5, means you can have 50 bugs open on your team, but you cannot go above that. It means that you cannot take on any new feature work until you solve some of those bugs. The strong message there, don't accrue technical debt. When we had the big, long 2-year releases, you could delay, you could build a mountain of debt and have time to work it down, usually. But in a service, there is no downtime. So don't accrue debt. And then we have these things at the bottom. And again, they're here to solve problems. We have SLAs, service level agreements, and they're about how quickly we do things. And depending on the categorization and priority, we need to respond within 12 hours, 24 hours, 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. Nothing upsets both internal or external customers as much as you going past those SLAs, because the message is you don't care about them. So this tells us, respond to your SLAs. There are metrics. Notice it's all about quality and service reliability. There's nothing there that says you need to ship 20 features a month. Okay? Maintain a high quality bar and write features as you can and release them as you can, but quality comes before getting those features out. If a feature a customer's waiting on takes an extra week to get out there, okay, that's okay. But if your site's down for a week, you won't have any customers to worry about. Okay? So we prioritize quality and reliability over the speed of getting features out. We want to release value regularly, and no question, but you've got to ship quality. That should be a fixed value. DevOps is about incremental improvements and constant improving. Find something in your process that hurts. It could be some of the M&Ms, the meetings and managers. It could be incompatible tool chains. Find something and improve it. And then find something else and improve it. There's DevOps in a nutshell. Not everything has been completely perfect for us, far from it. Let me share an interesting one here. We have this build, measure, learn mindset, sometimes known as hypothesis-driven development. And it says that anyone can put forward a hypothesis. We believe that customer segment wants this product or feature because of this value proposition. We believe our customers want a dark theme because they just keep telling us that. We design an experiment. That experiment might be to change a value or default a setting. It might be to add a feature into the product. And then we learn as quickly as we can. As an example, we were talking to our customers, and our customers told us, we need enterprise social. Anyone know what that is? We didn't. But apparently our customers wanted it. It's effectively a chat thing. That's good. Excellent. We have Skype, Skype for Business, Yammer, and SharePoint can probably do it 20 ways. Take your pick. And they went, no, you've got to build it into the product. Okay, you're our large enterprise customers, so we will take that on board and build it. And we created this thing called Team Rooms. And it was good. It showed your team members, who was present, who was absent. You could inject things like if bugs came in, you could put it into the thread. If builds occurred or failed, it can come into the thread. I mean, it was like a chat for developers. And our customers went, great. And we shipped it. And then we observed through our telemetry this kind of usage pattern. That's not good. So we went to our customers and said, well, clearly we failed. What did we do wrong? What's missing? And you know what they said? It's great. Don't change a thing. But our telemetry showed us no one was using it. So clearly there's a problem. So we thought maybe they can't find it. So when you open Visual Studio, there's a web page. We thought, okay, tell them that it's there. Use social media and say, look at this. Make it easier to discover the functionality. So in the next version of the product, we kept it there, we improved it, and went, there you go. Again, no one used it. Back to the customers, look, we're terribly sorry. What did we do wrong? What do you need? And you know what they said? They said it's great. We kept it in for 3 versions. We tested it, we did all the engineering on it, we tried to improve it, and then we closed it. And it cost us probably millions of dollars to do this. Now, when we closed it, it was fine, because no one was using it. But it did cost a lot of money for us. Do you think we'd do it again? Yes or no? What do you reckon? Yes? No? Sitting on the fence, aren't you guys? Of course we'll do it again. Absolutely. We will do it every time because it's listening to your customers and giving them the value they say they want. Yes, we'll do it again. But trust but verify. You need to have telemetry built into your applications so that we can make informed business decisions based on evidence. If we based our decisions purely on the customer saying, great, 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 that would still be in the product with no one using it. So listen to your customers, but make sure you've got the telemetry and the values to help you make informed decisions. That was one of our big learnings. And it was a costly learning. Our definition of done. I hadn't seen this anywhere prior to joining Microsoft. As part of our definition of done, the feature is live in production, collecting telemetry that examines the hypothesis which motivated the deployment. We're not done because you check the code in. We're not done because the code builds. And we're not done because we shipped it. We're not done until it's actually feeding us usable telemetry subject to all the privacy laws and considerations. A production-first mindset. In the days of TFS, our engineers slept really well. We would build the product, we'd create the ISO, and we'd give it to the customers, and they'd have to install it in their data centers and they'd have to run it. And we'd go home and have a good night's sleep. Excellent. If there was a problem, they got the phone call. We had smart engineers that had zero experience running a service in TFS. So we had to learn. For the first 18 months, the product was free as we learnt. And we learned a lot very quickly. No matter how much money you throw at a problem, you will experience outages. We had to learn that. So as a live site culture and mindset, you must have that a well understood and clear process. When a live site incident, an LSI occurs, we basically, on detection, we bring up a conference bridge, we make sure we've got the right people there. We always have at least one person whose only job is to document everything that happens. So as a post-mortem, we can learn from this. We can learn how the decisions were made. One of our largest outages, fortunately a few years ago now, we learnt that if the outage reaches X number of hours, get half the team and send them home. We had an outage, I think it was close to 32 hours, and we had staff that had not slept in 32 hours, they hadn't been home. Let me tell you something, humans don't make good decisions after 32 hours at work. So plan for that. Okay, we've reached, I don't know the exact number, I think it's probably 8 hours. Reached 8 hours, half of you go home and rest. Because if this keeps going, we're going to need you back fresh. That was one of our quick learnings. Our live site culture. Live site status is always the top priority. We do weekly live site reviews. We do daily reviews as well. You can't close an LSI until you document all of the repair items. So you must learn every time. We learn about actionable alerts. What was happening in the early days is our developers had put telemetry in there and they put all these alerts in there. Great for debugging. Then it'd get shipped out to production. And we'd have our ops people with their pages at home. You know what the average number of pages overnight was per engineer? Per ops person? It was about 8. 8 alerts every single night interrupting your sleep. Most of them didn't require any action. But you had to wake up, get out the workstations and figure this out. So we did a really interesting thing. We changed the behaviour quickly. You know what we did? We gave our developers pages. Developers don't like being paged 8 times overnight. Within 2 sprints, the number of false alerts had dropped from 8 down to around 1 or 2. Quite an interesting corporate change for us. When an alert happens, you've got to be able to take some action, an actionable alert. If it's just noise, then there's no value. Stop those things from happening. We have designated responsible individuals. As a culture, let me talk about team composition for a moment. I'm jumping ahead. With team composition, do you know what it's like to be in the zone? You know, when you're hyper productive, your mind is focused on a particular problem and you're just fixing things, you're writing code, you're really productive. It's a great place to be. And then someone taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, you want to go to lunch? And you're not going to get back in the zone. You may as well go to lunch. Turns out, some of us also have managers, these things called M&Ms. Hey, get that work done. Hurry up, hurry up. Oh, but we need you for a meeting for 4 hours. Meetings and managers. So, when you're in the zone, who likes being interrupted? Really? No one? What we've got is within each of our feature teams, we have a shield team. What do you think their job is? To shield the team from interruptions. They're 2 designated responsible individuals, and within our team, the DRIs change every sprint. That sounds interesting. Does anyone else do that? It's a good practice. So those 2 DRIs, their job is to respond to any live site incidents, to document the repair items, to enact the repair items, to otherwise keep all the distractions away. What we learnt is team members actually love that job. It's not a punishment. They learn about how the service they're writing is used. They learn about how to keep it healthy. They like that. The rest of the team they have greatly reduced numbers of interruptions and they can be more productive delivering value. Worked out that it was very good for us. You must have a status page. As a journey through DevOps, If there's an outage, we've got to tell our customers. So what had happened is someone would go and tweet about it, you'd blog about it, you'd go and do social media, you'd say this, you'd send emails out. And then the problem's fixed 20 minutes later. Do you go and update all of those things? No, because you're not tracking them all. And then how does a customer feel when this blog says the site's fixed and this one says it's still broken? Who do you believe? So we had to have a single point of truth. And if that says green, it means green. We have financially backed SLAs with our customers. If a customer's getting a server error of 500, 503 or some server error, and they see that says everything's great, that's not a happy customer. You know what? You're trying to pretend it's all good so you haven't got to pay up? That doesn't build trust with your customers. Be transparent. This started with a gentleman called Brian Harry. If we had an outage, we got it fixed, and then Brian, who was a technical fellow within Microsoft, very senior, he would write a blog post detailing exactly what happened, what the impact was. He detailed the root cause of the problem and what technology, what we're doing to fix it. And it was information rich. And our customers appreciated that. It was full transparency. We had a problem, this is what caused it, this is what we're doing. Our customers appreciated the transparency, but something that was less expected was our customers themselves often run services. So they learnt from our outages. They learnt, oh, we hadn't thought about that, we better learn how to prevent it from happening. So that was great. We assume breach. No matter how strong our network security is within Microsoft, there will be players on the network trying to do evil things. We have the red team, the attackers, and they constantly try and breach our service. We have the blue team, they're the defenders, and we run these exercises to try and identify any areas of exploit within our service. We did an interesting thing. We got rid of the blue team. Because you can't say that, oh, we're going to do a red-blue attack next Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Your attackers don't give you forewarning. They just attack whenever they want. So our defenders aren't the blue team. They're just our normal SREs. And the red team will attack any time they want. It's I think it's a 3 a.m. call in my time zone back in Australia. And I get up at 3 a.m. to listen to the retrospectives. It's fascinating. In the very early days, the red team would find an exploit and they would manage to do something they shouldn't. Last year, I think it was early last year, in order to be able to do something, they needed to chain 9 different exploits to do anything at all. So it's getting a lot better. Team autonomy. We had to change our team structure. This was big and a little bit painful. I want to tell you about, it's a book written by an economist called Daniel Pink, and the book's called Drive. Has anyone read it or heard of it? Drive. It's a good book to read. He tells a story of 2 groups. Group A has a strong business plan. They're well established in the market, they're well funded, and they're hiring the best people. Group B is working for free in their spare time because they want to. And both groups are going after the same business opportunity. Who should win? Well, Group A should really win the day. But it'd be a bad demonstration, huh? Group A was Encarta. Group B is Wikipedia. And if you don't know what Encarta was, you can look it up on Wikipedia. Encarta was a good product. It doesn't exist anymore. what Dan talks about is how to incentivize humans. As children, we're taught about rewards and punishment. Yeah? If you're a good person, you can have some candy or some ice cream. If you're naughty, you get a smack. Some people like the smack. Anyway, so how do we get people to do their best job? I'll ask a question. I want to walk, but the guys in the back of the room will hate me for it. So I'm going to have a volunteer, and my volunteer is over here with a white shirt on. Yes, you. That's okay. It's easier if you leave that in and you can stay seated. It's okay. So, how would you like a 20% pay rise? Very good. Very good. And will you give me 20% more work? The answer, he's not sure. I would suspect I wouldn't get my 20%. But he would like it. How do we make people want to bring their A game? How can we make sure people want to come to work and do the best job every day? Money is nice, of course, but it's not always the best thing. What Dan talks about is three things. Humans want autonomy, purpose, and mastery, or mastery and purpose. Who's done a Microsoft exam? Hands up. Really? No? Come on, someone's done some Microsoft exams, they're just shy. All right, so I usually play the game. So I've done a few exams, including exam 001. Back in 1993, I hope you were all born then. In 1993, I did exam 001. I've done 64 Microsoft exams since then. And I've worked closely with Microsoft my entire adult career. But they only became the company that I want to work for in the last 3 to 5 years. Okay? I've worked closely with them my whole life, but I only wanted to work for them more recently. And that was because of the cultural change that's taken place there. They became the company I want to work for. Autonomy. Being self-employed, I only had two bosses. The bank and the one I married. And so long as I kept them both happy, I could do whatever I wanted for the customer. So I was really worried that if I join any company, including Microsoft, could I work for a manager telling me what to do? Well, it turns out I'm given a lot of autonomy. Does my manager know that I'm here today with you? Nope. Promise he doesn't. They gave me a corporate Amex, American Express. They gave me some safety rails and basically said, do the right thing for our customers. I was amazed. I'm given a lot of freedom to do the right thing. And I'm given support that if I try an experiment and it doesn't work, I'm not likely to be fired, hopefully. That's really important to me. If a customer has a certain problem and I have the ability to fix it, I want to help them. And I need my employer to kind of let me do that. Mastery. Anyone play golf? Is golf popular in South Korea? Yeah, that maddening pursuit of whacking the little white ball around, just trying to shave one off your handicap. Humans like to be good at what we do. We don't want to come to work and struggle and have expectations placed on us without support to achieve. In my role, we're given subscriptions to great online training, internal and public facing. I'm encouraged to do training to constantly keep my skills up to date. Is anyone in the room a front-end web developer? You guys don't like volunteering. As a front-end web developer, 50% of your knowledge becomes obsolete every 2 years. Between when I started talking today and when I finish, there'll be 3 new JavaScript frameworks you need to learn. What a job. So we need support so we master our trade. And finally, purpose. We've got to know that what we do matters. In my 2-week fast tracks that I deliver for customers, at the end, the team I work with have to stand up and present to all of the other teams and their managers. And they have to present what they learnt over the 2 weeks. It's the best part of my job. I get to see the difference that I've made to a team of people. It's like a proud parent sitting back watching his kids graduate. I shouldn't call them kids. And I love that about my job. I know that what I do every day I go to work makes a difference for a customer. Sometimes they're not a customer. Sometimes they use competitors' products. That's okay. I don't mind. When you look at those things, in the area of plan, which for us means 3 sprints, in the area of practices, how a team does things, we're given a lot of autonomy. Our teams can choose how to do those things. Lots of freedom. As you move up the stack, though, we have more alignment. So, taxonomy. All of our teams need the same language. L0s, L1s. I'll explain those in a minute. The same cadence, same 3-week sprints. They determine the teams, the roles, and how the teams are organised. But it's a constant balancing act. We want to give them as much autonomy as we can, but you do need alignment for things to work well. If you look at our team structure back 7 or 8 years ago, we had these roles: program managers, developers, testers. Very, very common, isn't it? Any of you guys have similar? Do you have development teams and QA teams? If you do, you probably have the same kinds of dysfunctions, the communication costs of silos. The QA saying, here's a bug, the developer saying, no, it's not. So we wanted to change this, and this was hard. In December of 2014, we enacted something we called combined engineering. And what we did, watch this, we basically got rid of the labels. You weren't a developer and a tester, you were an engineer. And that meant you wrote some code, and that could have been for a feature, or it could have been a test for that feature. But you're just an engineer. And that meant we got rid of a silo. We got rid of a communication barrier. Full disclosure, within QA, we had roles called SDET and SDE. SDET, Software Development Engineer in Testing. And that meant that our testers could actually write some code. So it wasn't as bad as it could be, but we did lose staff. There were people that just loved being testers. They wanted to be career testers, and that's okay. They found other roles within Microsoft, and unfortunately, some of them found roles outside of our company and we lost them. Losing staff is terrible. We don't want to do that. we weren't finished yet. We had to go further. We basically then created these multidisciplinary feature teams. And we gave them direct access to the customer. That was amazing. So the team that do all of the hard work, they get to talk directly to the customer, hearing what the customer likes, what the customer doesn't like, straight from the customer's mouth. Okay, that was huge. Our teams sit in the same room. Small scale open plan. So when you stand up, every person you see is working on delivering the same value that you are. We have those teams, about 10 to 12 people. We keep them intact for about 12 months. They own the feature, they choose when to ship it, and they own it in production. So if it's the Azure, one of the teams on Azure boards, if there's a production problem, they get the call straight away because they're the best people to fix it and they want to fix it. It's professional pride in the work they do. Question for you. As humans, we need to be challenged. Sometimes we realise in our careers we've fallen into a rut. We're doing the same thing, we're not feeling challenged. And you think, I need a change. So maybe you go and update your LinkedIn profile. Maybe you look for another job. And then maybe you take your experience and your skills and your IP to a competitor. That's what we do. So we wanted to change that because humans need their own autonomy. I need to control my career. So we came up with a sticky note exercise, a post-it note. You know little post-it notes? So every 12 to 18 months, we get our engineers together and we get our PMs from the feature teams, and they come up and they put their first, second and third choice for teams. No human resources, no HR, no interviews. If you're an engineer, you're an engineer. So if you feel like a change, we make it easy for you to change. No, who likes doing technical interviews? No one. So we learnt that 80% of our staff choose to stay on the same team. 20% will move around. And that's great because it cross-pollinates the microculture of those teams, things that this team are doing. If one of those people move over here, the ideas and the things come with them as well. For good and bad, that's great. Anecdotally, I don't have the numbers and the evidence, I would believe we probably retain 20% more staff as a result of this. That's me making up a number. I don't have the evidence to back that up. While we were doing this within Azure DevOps, the entire culture of Microsoft was changing. We were changing from a mindset of we know it all. You know, if we go in front of a customer, they expect us to know everything. Guys, you can't know everything. We changed to a learn it all. We're knowledgeable people. We will come and we will listen and we will learn from our customers. We will learn with them and solve problems. It's a whole different way of looking at things. Have you heard of a growth mindset? We were moving from a fixed mindset, the belief that your intelligence is predetermined. That's what most organisations have, is a fixed mindset. We moved to a growth mindset. And that basically says we can do anything, we can learn anything. So with the growth mindset, we look at a problem, we learn, and we want to constantly learn. I talked about the web front-end developer with 50% of his knowledge obsoleting every 2 years. Any public cloud provider, AWS, Amazon, these things change all the time. So you can't just learn it and use it. You've got to have a mindset of constant learning and improving. When we do technical interviews at Microsoft now, we don't really emphasize your technical skills anymore. Now it's far more important to understand your mindset. Is it a growth mindset? If you've got a problem, how do you learn? That's more important than, do you know where to go and click in Azure to do something? We can teach you that. But changing a human's mindset and culture, that's a lot harder. This was a really good book. Has anyone read this book before, Turn the Ship Around? It's a good book if you wanted to go and read it. It talks about the USS Santa Fe. It's a nuclear-powered submarine in the US Navy. The US military was the benchmark of command and control. You never question your superiors, you do what you're told. Like most militaries, I guess. The USS Santa Fe was the worst of the submarines in that it had huge staff turnover, really bad morale. No one wanted to work there. David Marquette was given the opportunity to be the captain of the worst ship. And he tells in his book the story about taking the ship out, and he said, all ahead, 2/3. And the helmsman sort of looks and hesitates, and then he relays the order, all ahead, 2/3. A little bit later on in that day, David walks over to him and says, look, when I gave you that order, you didn't act quickly. You hesitated. Why? And you know what the helmsman said? He said, this ship doesn't have 2/3. David was perplexed. So why did you then issue the order? And the answer was, because you told me to. Can you see the problem there? So David's training was on a vessel that had a 2/3 speed setting. The ship that he was on didn't have it. But those people that are subject matter experts are not allowed to question. They're not allowed to have an opinion. They're not allowed to express a thing. So the book is about how David completely changed the culture. And it became the best ship that people wanted to work in. A disproportionately large number of people that have served on that submarine now command and captain their own submarines. It's become a flagship for how you can make change. Good book to read. All right, just going to wrap up now because I realise I'm coming very close to time. The last two things, quite quickly. We have to do a shift left on quality. How do you release frequently without breaking things? We had to change our branching model. Let me tell you something that should scare you. With TFS 2008, we had about 246 feature branches. We had 4 full-time engineers whose only job was branching and merging. Who wants that job? That's a horrible job. We had to flatten the model. We went to trunk-based development, which is normal these days for most organisations. You need a nice flat structure there. What was happening is we would get code in and then test late. We changed that. We now have pull request workflow. And as part of the pull request on our shift left, I can show you a real one if you like. If we go across here and have a look. Okay, so this is live. So these are engineers within Microsoft Engineering working right now. If I go and have a look at one of these, I'll pick one at random. What can go wrong, right? What you'll see there is that pull request took about 26 minutes. And if we have a look, there were 28,600 unit tests executed on the pull request. If that pull request passes and is committed into master, it triggers a CI, which today will execute over 90,000 of these unit tests. And this is going to happen about 280 times every single day. Okay? There's some big numbers there. If we look at the actual workflow of that, jump into there. As part of our pull request workflow, we have humans eyeballing it as well. We have mandatory reviewers. One of the talks coming up after me is about DevSecOps. So we do things like we scan the source commit to make sure they're not checking in passwords, usernames, reversible encryption in any way. They're not putting in blob storage SAS tokens. We scan that in the pull request and block it before it gets committed if there's any problems. There's a whole lot of things we do there. We also have component detection. That's something that is automatically injected within our organisation now. So we will look for all components used by the solution. We'll look for any vulnerabilities. If we've got any open source packages with known vulnerabilities, we will block it as well. That's all mandatory. So there's so much goes on in that pull request. Okay, that was really important for us. Green means green. You're not recording this, are you? So, if we were back in 2008, and we had 80% of our tests passing, what do you think we did? We shipped the product. 80% passing. The other 20% weren't passing, but they were flaky tests. You know, SDEs wrote the automation, SDEs ran it, the developers changed something and the test broke. No one owned the test, so no one fixed it. Horrible problem. We had those orange lines, 27,000 fully automated tests, the slowest to run, the most expensive to write, and the least reliable. And we went all in. Horrible. We had to change that and move our mindset to the left and write unit tests, basically, L0s. Over about 2.5 years, those numbers are out of date. Now it's about 90,000 of those unit tests. And the last thing I'll mention is when we deploy, we use a lot of feature flags, but we do progressive deployment. There's the screenshot, but I can show you the real one. If we have a look in here, there's the live pipeline we use for deploying Azure DevOps around the world today. Okay, should we do a release? No, let's not do that. So, in terms of progressive exposure, we learned we can deploy quickly. We choose to deploy to Ring 0, a group of machines, and these are our high tolerance customers. It's us, ourselves. We deploy to ourselves and it's our production. And then we wait. We deploy the binaries. And if everything's okay, we wait. Then we deploy and service the database changes. And we wait. Then we go out to Ring 1. Ring 1 is a comparatively smaller data center, about 1 to 1.5 million users in Brazil, because it's in a US time zone friendly. Recently, we've added a European data center there as well. We then deploy to Ring 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we choose to take about 2 weeks to do this. It's not uncommon that we'll actually still be deploying one version when the next version's already in Ring 0 or Ring 1. If we find a bug, we find it hopefully down here, and we minimize the fewest number of users. Has the journey been absolutely perfect? No, it's had ups and downs. But let me show you my second final slide. In 2016, we shipped more features to our customers than the combined 4 years before that by removing taxes. We have the same number of people, the same definition of feature, but we'd remove taxes. We got rid of meetings we didn't need. We set up the shield teams. We got rid of the labels and so forth. And it's worked really well for us. Here, GDPR. That took a lot of engineering. And also we renamed from VSTS to Azure DevOps. It wasn't just a find and replace of names. We broke a monolithic application into separate services. That was a lot of work. So when it went down here, that wasn't a problem. So now I work to help customers achieve this much faster through just our lessons learnt. So for anyone that wants a copy of the slides there, you can download the deck. Feel free to do so. Okay. And thank you very much. You've got my contact details there. If anyone has any questions or would like any follow-up, please feel free. And finally, thank you very much for the opportunity to come and spend some time with you in Seoul. I appreciate it. Thank you.